And the next prompt is meditation and crystals can heal you spiritually and physically.
So I put a green thumbs up because the scriptures actually tell us, Ephesians 2:1-2 says that there is a God of this air that's working. And then there's another verse in 2 Corinthians 4 that echoes the same thing. So the people who are able to manifest certain realities, certain blessings, certain miracles, as Mel mentioned, there is a force behind that. And I'm not one to neglect anyone's experiences if you guys feel like you have actually manifested good things in your life. But kind of back to what Johanna was saying, and I'm not saying this to be offensive, there is a demonic force behind that. I believe that God is the only one who is good. He's the one who gives good to us. And so if you're...
Okay, here's what's interesting about this type of rhetoric is that who has the claim on God? To say that your beliefs about God is more accurate than someone else's beliefs about God is naturally, as she said, haughty or prideful. You can't help but to be prideful when you believe in that way. When it comes to this, until God, I saw someone say this at one point, until God cracks open the skies and points to what religion is true, it's all opinion. I know I keep saying that, but so often in these discussions, it feels like we're fighting with facts, and we're not. It's a lot of just our own life experience that causes us to think and believe certain things. And so, yeah, we have to definitely respect. And I also want to go back to the point that I think metaphysically, as far as when we talk about first principles of light and darkness and morality and spirituality and all these different things, I think fundamentally Satan cannot create. Satan cannot heal. Satan, I don't even believe that there's like a being called Satan that's like somewhere in the ether from his throne, or I don't even know how you would even imagine there being a Satan. Like, I think this is a good thought experiment. Like, let's say Satan is real, and the way we talk about him is like, man, Satan been whooping my butt this week, or Satan tried, that's the devil right there. Just how almost flippantly and kind of carelessly we talk about Satan. But when we actually think about what that implies or what that means, is that, Satan is worse than your worst nightmare. You understand? Like, Satan is the very essence of evil. And so if the essence of evil was dwelling with you and you take it in your stride, but, some political person or some athlete, a bear, whatever, kind of angers you or frightens you. I don't know why I said athlete. I'm just thinking of people that may trigger you, or, just the way we react to real people is far more, how do I put this? Basically, if we really believe what we believe about Satan, we will walk around terrified. Look at someone's heart rate when they're next to a serial killer or a terrorist or something, right? Like, you're juiced up, you're heightened, your senses are heightened, you're probably feeling some anger, some fright, disgust, all these things. We feel none of that during our day when somehow Satan tempts us throughout the day and talks to us and stuff. Like, I'm not saying that there isn't a Satan, but I'm just saying we don't live as though there actually is.
You're getting blessings from another source that is not God, even if it's yourself, you're ultimately opening up a doorway to something that is not good. And it might be good in the temporal, but I think that there is an exchange being made in the long term. And I've heard a ton of New Age testimonies of people who have come out of New Age, and they've talked about the exchanges that they made in order to gain that instant satisfaction.
So like the word says, it says our battle's not against flesh and blood, it's against powers and principalities. So there definitely is a spiritual component to it, but the question is, where is the power coming from, right?
Exactly. Where is the power coming from? That is something I said in the last video. Just to reiterate, power Metaphysically, the highest ideal we have about this discussion is that power has to come from a source. Something has to be producing that power. And it is our stance that only God can be the source of what we call power. Satan can only twist and manipulate and lie. That's why he must lie. That's why we say Satan is a lie. Yeah, so it's a manipulation. And again, this all comes back down to fruit. And at the end of the day, we can't take anyone else's word for it, because even if we take someone's word for it, we are making a value judgment upon them. We're saying they are worthy of trust. That's still our choice, our perception. So at the end of the day, it comes back to how we see things. We have to trust ourselves. It's not an option. Even the mistrust of ourselves is a trust in our mistrust. We're trusting that our value judgment upon ourselves as being untrustworthy is legitimate. So you can't get away from it. So it's really hard to speak for other people. It's like, you're doing this wrong. Your experience is invalid. Maybe it seems valid right now, but you'll see that it's not. And if it's not, it's the prodigal son. I'll return. But yeah, I just think it's up for everyone to look at their own fruit of their lives.
Even like I was saying in my testimony, I used to dabble with crystals and things like that for good energy, for anxiety, when I felt depression, all these different things. And in the long run, I would feel things happen, but then I would feel the anxiety come back, the depression come back. You have to consistently keep chasing something. And that's where there's a gap, because it's like, you shouldn't have to consistently, I need to go get my chakras checked or whatever, get a crystal for that to have peace. When it's like, when you come to Jesus Christ, it's like you come to him and he is the peace. Amen. You don't have to go buy all the crystals at the crystal shop. You don't have to go get a reading. You don't have to do more manifestation. It's just simply submitting, how we're talking about submission, submitting to the word of God, believing and accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. It really changes your life, and you don't have to continue to strive. There's a lot of striving. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to wear this. Oh, this bad thing happened to me. It's because I need my crystal. It's like there is a component of it where there's power in it, and the Bible actually talks about it. There is power in it. You see all throughout Scripture where it references divination, astrologers, all throughout the Bible. Like, this stuff isn't new. The Bible references it and talks about how it is witchcraft. Yep. It is rebellion against God. I also apologize if we've misrepresented Jesus Christ. He's much deeper than any religion. He wants a relationship with you, and he loves you, and he died on the cross for your sins. And ultimately, there are people that falsely misrepresent him. It's not him.
Mm-hmm. I think we're actually having two different conversations right now. I think we're answering Lauren's questions, but I think what seems like is...
Real quick, before we get into that, I wanted to say that I agree. I mean, again, I think we have to look at denominations and, when it comes to this, because even with Christianity, whatever religion, there's going to be disagreements. There's going to be different denominations of it that seem less legitimate, and naturally the law of variance, or everything seems to be on a spectrum. So whatever institution you're in, there's a hierarchy. There's some that are closer to God and some that are further away, some that are aiming better at the mark and some that are off the mark. And so I do believe there's a lot of people in the new age who still depend upon external things like crystals to fulfill them in some way. And I have a couple of crystals. I'm not big into them. Growing up, I was led to believe they were demonic, and I think they're getting at that here a little bit. And I would just say, who created crystals? They were created by God. So how can something that's created by God be demonic? In essence, you could use anything for evil purposes. You could kill someone with a Bible if you wanted to, technically. So I think in essence, nothing that is created by God can be evil, but I do think the dependence upon crystals can be turned into an idol, which anything can be turned into an idol at that point. But also the validity of crystals, I do think they're valid as far as bringing our mind to a level of awareness, just like how playing beautiful music or going to the beach. You know, there's certain things that inspire a state of being. And I think that's what crystals do.
Happening is we're trying to change each other's minds on a conceptual level. I think if we can all agree that we are valuable, kind, loving human beings that are just trying to have a conversation versus like bringing the large concept into the conversation, it would be more pointed toward the question.
Can I just please say this too? Because you said that people who, because it kind of goes into like what she's asking, people who we go get our chakras checked all the time, get our astrology checked every time. I know people that are Christian, they pray every day, they call on Jesus every day. So it's a religious thing that you do religiously every day you call upon. So once you get saved, you shouldn't have to go back or go to church every Sunday and try to get, you know, a new word or a new motivation every Sunday, every Wednesday. And you shouldn't need a new daily bread every day or things like that every day, because isn't that what we're doing when we get a daily divination from Spirit? You're getting your daily bread, which is the same thing. You're doing it every day.
I was reading my Bible every day because it helps you.
You have to
get up in the
tithe
morning,
But
read
it's
a
not as a
passage.
ritual. Even to answer her question about the power, my answer is it does have power, but it's not the truth. It's not power that comes from Jesus Christ. It is another power. Like I said, the Bible references, like I referenced, the Bible mentions in Ephesians 6, you can go read it. It talks about there are spiritual, like she talked about the prince of the air, that there are spiritual components, but are we supposed to be touching that? Are we supposed to be messing with that? And the answer is no.
But if it comes from
that
nature,
was my answer
crystals
to the
are
question.
elements. Crystals are elements
That was my
from
answer
nature.
to the
You can go
question.
mining and pick geos up from nature. How can anything that came from the creator, God, and the universe, now all of a sudden that you're utilizing it to assist you to, as a conduit, to assist you to raise your vibrations, to meditate with it, now it becomes evil.
So crystals, they're not meant to heal. We go to Jehovah Rapha, our healer, who healed. He was always healing throughout the Bible. He never took a crystal and healed anybody. So if we're taking a created thing and using it for outside of what it's supposed to be used for, it creates an open door for the enemy to show its power.
You know what's interesting though is that isn't medicine a created thing in order to manifest healing in the body? I think when it comes to healing, it has everything to do with your mindset and nothing to do with the external world. You know, God himself in the flesh can come to you and lay hands on you, but healing will not manifest if you are not in alignment, if you are not and you know, I'm getting this from the scriptures where Jesus went to his hometown and they're like, isn't that the carpenter's son? You know, they're like, who does this guy think he is? And no one was healed, right? It's according to the scriptures, God himself could not heal these people because of their mind. And fear is another thing that closes the door, from my understanding, to manifestations of healing. I've experienced healing twice, actually, of my body, where it happened just instantly, and it was an active, it was an intent of mine, you know. And I've been learning the metaphysics of healing, and it's all to be in alignment with truth, because healing is truth. Sickness is a lie. Sickness is of the devil, right? Healing is of God. And so people can have different methods and manifest healing. But I think, you know, I don't really use crystals that way, but it really comes down to your mindset. The battlefield is truly in the mind.
But it's not from God power, it's from demonic power. And I know that y'all get offended, but it's the truth. I'm not here to shame or judge. I'm just telling you that's what it is.
What's demonic is the epidural. What's demonic is these drugs in the hospital.
They are. Let's talk about it.
They
are.
For me, like, this is.
We're on the same page. Oh, sorry. I'm in alignment this episode. That's what's up. If you haven't seen the last two parts, the link will be in the description. Check it out. Let me know what you think.
Probably gonna sound really crazy, but when I put God on the highest pedestal, when I put divinity on the highest pedestal, then that means all of it. All of it. The yin and the yang, the light and the dark. Unfortunately, you know, I would never put a demonic force over God. I would never even act like a demonic force has more power than divinity. I wouldn't. Now, if he wants to take his angels or the Orishas or, you know, if we want to go there and now light and dark is having a battle, now we're having spiritual battles, okay, but I'm not taking him off of the pedestal. and acting like Satan has more power than divinity, for me, that's wild. And then to act like a plant or a crystal over these scientists in the labs taking the plants, taking the crystals, and using chemicals, and then we're buying it.
It's
and
sorcery.
then we have the nerve to sit back
Pharmaceuticals,
and
it's
not act
sorcery.
like that is demonic.
It is, though.
But more
It
than a
is.
crystal? Like,
All of it's demonic.
From a Christian perspective, and I know that you guys might feel judged, please, I apologize for that. That is not what we are.
Respect for them being more respectful as the time has gone on. In the first two parts I reacted to, it was a bit more judgmental, but love the humility and the pivoting that they're doing to be like, hey, I do care about you. My intent is not to offend. I like that.
Trying to do it all. I think that there is a bit of a disconnect because in New Age religion in general, there are a lot of.
not religion. Don't say.
Well,
we're not a
yeah,
religion.
but that's what, spirituality.
Yeah, we're not a religion.
Sorry, New Age spirituality. There appears to be a lot of different.
I'm going to explain that. Again, I know I'm pausing too much, but it's a vibe, whatever. Because they say, we're not a religion. And then also in the beginning, when they're introducing themselves, the New Agers, they were like, I don't really identify as anything, but I'm representing the New Age side, because each of them had to say their name and what side they're on. And they're like, technically, identifying is not identifying is kind of the whole point. And now, she's saying this, and the reason why this is because we have to have the understanding that reality is equal to God, is equal to truth. Right? Or maybe I switch it around. Reality is equal to truth, and that's equal to God. They're all synonymous. They're all different clothing on the same body, right? Different labels on the same package. And so understanding that they're perfect synonyms, then the closer we get to reality, the closer we get to understanding what's in front of us, who we are, what's in that tree, what's in the sky, what is that squirrel doing, literally our reality. The closer we get to understanding what's happening, the closer we get to truth, and the closer we get to God. What I've found is that the highest truth is in experience and not in knowledge. And so I've been seeking a revelation of God, and knowledge is the foundation of systematic religion. Religion is built off of information and knowledge passed down. Spirituality, what I think this young lady is trying to say, is built off experience. We don't have to label it. We don't have to put a name on it, because we find that although labels are helpful, one great example I heard is like, someone's pointing at the moon, trying to get you to look at the moon, and you're looking at the tip of their finger. And it's like, no, look at what my finger is pointing to, not my finger. And that's often what we do with words. We're stuck on the word, and we don't go beyond the word, because every word is a symbol, and on the back of it or underneath it, what that symbol is standing upon is a piece of reality, right? That's what symbols are. They're representatives of something. And so all words are representing something in your reality. And so they're only useful as far as they point you in the direction to truth, to where once you get there, like the young lady was saying, like once you get saved and stuff, you shouldn't have to keep going to church. And I know that's not everyone's story, but I think there's some legitimacy in that. There's the other example of, when you cross a river in a canoe, you leave the boat on the dock or whatever. You leave it on the side. You don't take the boat with you. Or when you knock on a door with a brick and they let you in, you set the brick down. And so understanding that religion is a tool in that same way. And once you get the revelation, once you go to where it's trying to take you, then you could drop it. And so hopefully that makes sense.
Different, interbeliefs within that belief. So a lot of times we may not be talking about you directly, but we're talking about somebody else who practices in New Age. But I did want to say, from a Christian perspective, it's not you intentionally saying, oh, this has more power than God, or, oh, I'm going to put this above God. It's what idolatry is going to something else in place of God, because the enemy does not care if you have good things. He just cares whether you go to God for it or not.
You do that with sugar. You do that with clothes and name branding. You have to be very careful, because this is where like the chaos and the trickery comes in. There's a lot of New Age people who are beginners, right? There's a lot of levels to spirituality, and a lot of it is you can get addicted to the knowledge, but with the knowledge you have to practice, you have to have wisdom, and you can't do that without certain practices. And then there's so many practices, where do you go, right? But then when we go back to like just regular everyday day, and not the crystals and not the meditation or anything, just an everyday, people wanting the name brand clothes, people wanting social media, like whatever, sugar.
That's what I was going to say. Idolatry is not just specific. We're not just saying, oh, you're New Age spirituality, you guys practice idolatry.
No, I actually have crystals. I just wanted to be clear. So in terms of meditating, I meditate knowing that I need to surrender because I'm not in control. And then when it comes to crystals, I have crystals with the acknowledgement that any belief or weight that I give to the feeling of having crystals in my home is backed by the idea that these crystals were part of the universe that was created by someone, by the divine. And that's...
Yes, it's similar to having flowers, I think. If I could, because everything has a different level of vibration. We even understand that ice vibrates at a slower rate than gas, right? Fact check me on that. I did not do well in biology. Everything has a different level of vibration, and the higher the vibration, experientially, the more blissful it is our understanding, right? The lower the vibration, the more suffering there is. And so different things like crystals have a high vibration is the concept. And so they're inspirational. They're like a window to the divine because of how they look and what they represent. And yeah, I think a lot of it could be just placebo, right? But that's still powerful if that can get you to a mind state or a state of being that's of service, that's useful. Then more power to you.
I think where I don't necessarily think our beliefs are mutually exclusive.
I'm going to keep saying the same thing. I feel like we're the Bible is meaningful to and when someone has chosen revelation. Yeah. And so I'm going to keep kind of highlighting the challenge of like us, meaning the folks on this side of the room have acknowledged that we have revelation about the Bible and we live in a certain way about the Word. And there's a distinction between how to talk about those beliefs if that's not what everybody in the room is saying. And I don't hear you guys saying that the Bible, the way, the truth is all that you do. And I respect that. And so even with the question about crystals, meditation, I absolutely believe that it can heal someone who believes in that. My beliefs about what the Bible says about that are either helpful or not. And so I'm going to, choose to share it if it's something that'll be received. And if it's not, I'm not going to throw that out there. So that's my perspective on the crystal meditation.
Can I say something? So I think also, I'm just hearing a lot of talk when it comes to like crystals and meditation is like, that we are, like someone had mentioned earlier, like seeking out this external power, that we make room for all these other energies to come in and we don't know like who essentially we're channeling. But one, the way the crystals actually heal is not that like, I'm gonna hold a crystal and it's gonna cure a disease. Like it's scientifically proven, everything in this universe vibrates at a particular frequency, at a particular hertz. A certain crystal, like clear quartz, for example,
I'm so on point. This is kind of crazy. I'm not saying that we're right, but the fact that they're echoing, I have not seen this part of the video. The fact that they're saying what I'm saying is crazy to me.
Say I'm throwing a number out there, it'll vibrate at 440 hertz. Let's say the average human body resonates at 10 hertz. Essentially what you're doing when you hold a crystal is you create room for alignment for your energy, your frequency to raise to the vibration of the crystal. So it's not that I'm summoning a portal and allowing the devil to come in and like asking this crystal to heal me or even seeking power outside of myself. I'm just allowing something called contrainment to happen. I believe that's the word. But there's literally scientific evidence on this. Like when you let one hertz music play and another at a different frequency, like they'll start to, entrainment, sorry, that's the word. They'll start to align with each other. So essentially like what you're doing when you're meditating, you're holding a crystal is creating alignment. And when you're in alignment, then from that space, the cells in your body literally start to listen to you and they start to heal. So yeah, I think that's a big thing that we're skipping as well, as like not actually talking about the science of why that's happening. Like it's not like I'm holding a rock and I'm like, okay, please heal me. It's
because I have one crystals like right now, so it's wrapped in copper. So you know, copper is a conduit. So it amplifies the energy within the crystals, because crystals is nothing but a mineral.
I would like to say this, that we should worship the Creator as opposed to worshiping creation. Right, because you're putting your faith into something that this can do this for me. This can do, like you were saying, like it amplifies the crystal. You're putting your faith.
That's what's happening.
No,
like
literally,
it's
scientific proof
but
that
it's
copper
also because
amplifies.
you're putting faith in it
That's
as well.
science.
And then also the Bible references that even the rocks cry out. So these things, like Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life is what the Bible says. If you're going to another power or something else for healing, for deliverance, for whatever it could be, that takes faith.
Yeah, it just makes me think of like,
you can only heal yourself. That's what I was saying before. I think having a crystal is the same thing as going to the beach. It's just different vibrations, right? And no one's calling you a Satan worshiper because you like to hang out on the seashore to get some peace, you know, which is healing. You know, there's a reason why there's a lot of music online with beach water sounds in the background, you know. And I think another problem is that, you know, we can only recognize God in our own image. Or I think a lot of Christians have the belief that God is separate from nature. And the whole concept in the New Age is that there's no such thing as separation. Separation only exists in perception. And as we dive deeper into what we are perceiving, we find hidden connections, right? We may think that a tree is separate from the soil and is separate from light, or the sun and is separate from water and the rivers. But then we find that they're all, you know, interwoven, that they're all or orchestra of one thing that is allowing the appearance of a tree. You know, there's no actual separation. And one of my favorite examples is like the hand. So we say that this is the hand and this is the wrist, and they're two separate things. But as we investigate further, we see that there's no separation, right? They're one thing, but in our perception, because we're able to see differences and change, we're able to kind of compartmentalize our reality and create all these separations. And we also project that onto God, that God is somewhere out there and he's separate from all of us. But the New Age concept is that God is everywhere. I mean, what else could omnipresent mean other than, like, I don't think it means that God is hovering over, kind of like a human. Like I could be here or I could be there, but I'm not in the ground, right? I'm not in the tree. I'm not, you know, I'm just present. But I think the highest concept of that is that wherever there is a place, inside of my body is a place, inside of my cell is a place, it's a location. And there's no such thing as there being a location in existence and God not being present in that location.
Like, okay, so then someone that's dying of cancer, should they not go to chemo and like only talk to Jesus? Like, I don't think it's bad to seek help outside of yourself. In fact, that makes me quite literally feel powerless to think that Jesus is the only way. Like, that's a part of the freedom I found in experiencing my truth and seeing my bigger role and my bigger picture and seeing all of the gifts that have been given to me by God, by Jesus, to be able to use to help myself. Because why would I want to live in a world or think, even fathom that Jesus could create a world where I didn't have access to these tools? Like, what divine creator is like, oh yeah, and now you can only suffer like all these tools that are here.
Why
you can't
would
use
he
them.
give them to us?
Yeah.
Why would they be available? That it does, and then to think that a demonic force, and then we have to also question, like, are we looking at the King James Version of the Bible? If we look at the Ethiopian Bible with 880, if we look at the Ethiopian Bible, right, and we go back to Ethiopia and we talk about Christianity in Africa, okay? And then we look at all the different stories and stuff that have been taken out, people that have written fiction, some people have, and then there's just so many different things that have happened with the Bible. I personally, if I was Christian, would want to actually learn the Ethiopian language, go all the way up to the top and actually see one of the oldest Bibles in the world.
So there were crystals in the Bible, onyx, jasper, all these precious stones. They were not used to heal or whatever. They were used to display God's glory. Priests had these precious stones and jewels in their ephod. There's precious jewels in heaven. It's just for beauty. It's not to rely on them for healing, because healing only comes through Jesus. So that's what the only point that we are trying to make.
Worship keeps coming up, and I just wanted to define what worship is. Worship is a lifestyle that you're living. And it's not necessarily always getting down on your knees like, oh my gosh, these crystals, or oh my gosh, it's money, or whatever it is. It's a lifestyle in the way that you walk. So that's what worship is.
And the next prompt is, Jesus is the only.
Okay. Do I have any final thoughts? Yes, I agree that worship is a mechanism, kind of an automatic programming that of the mind, of the ego. And something I didn't mention last time is that the ego is the same thing as the flesh, from my understanding or understanding. The Bible talks a lot about the flesh. When I talked about our identity, our name, and our face, that's the flesh, that's the ego, that's the animal, that's the fear, that's the source of fear, that's the source of separation, that's the source of the beliefs in lack. So yeah, that same mental activity outsources its power. It looks to its environment to fix an inner problem, and it turns things into idols through that process, and it worships it. It bows down to it. And I think what's interesting is that we all struggle with that. We all are pressing towards the mark still, and it's just interesting if the marker for validity is whether or not you still sin or not, then none of us have a valid belief, because we all still fall short. And so I feel like sometimes there's well, you guys do this wrong, so you don't know the truth. And it's like, well, some of us may, but perfection is not the marker of, it doesn't validate my whole belief system or invalidate it. We're all on this journey, and we're going to talk about this more later.